Hello everyone, I am Mr. Nabarun Bundle, Senior Subject Master of St. Paul School, Darjeeling, and you are watching my channel THINKONOMICS-Study with Nabarun. In this channel, I am trying to explain the basic concepts of economics in much more simple language and in much more common language so that it becomes easy for the boys and girls of class 10, 12, even those who are appearing for the competitive exams and even for the foundation CA foundation course. It's a good response. The last 5-7 days, it is just 7 days I believe, and 100 subscribers, more than 100 subscribers, near about 1000 views. Thank you for your supporting. So if you like my channel, please subscribe and please pass to your friends and to your relatives so that I can reach more number of students and the motto economics for all can be achieved. Boys and girls, in our last lesson I was explaining you the different magnitudes of elasticity. There are mainly five ways by which the elasticities can be measured. Number one, relatively elastic demand. Number two, relatively inelastic demand. Number three, unitary elastic demand. And number four, it is perfectly inelastic demand. And number five, completely elastic demand. What is relatively elastic demand that we have to know? That I have explained also in the last lesson. Just for the recap, relatively elastic demand, it implies that if the rate of change of commodity, if the rate of change of commodity due to change in price is more, that is, the rate of change of quantity demand is more than the rate of change of price, then it will be termed as relatively elastic demand. Now, when I'm talking about that the relative, that the percentage change in quantity demand, that is which is there in the numerator. So numerator is greater than that of the denominator. Percentage change in quantity demand is more than percentage change in price. Numerator is greater than denominator. So definitely the value will be greater than 1. So what will be the value? The value for relatively elastic demand is greater than 1. What will be the shape of the demand curve? The shape of the relatively elastic demand curve will be as much flat as possible. Other than the straight line parallel to quantity axis, make the demand curve as much flat as possible. It will show relatively elastic demand curve. Example of relatively elastic demand curve is definitely the luxurious items. Boys and girls, we have seen that if our income increases by 10%, sorry, if the price of the luxurious good increases by 10%, for example, the car, then the demand for the car will decrease by more than 10%. The demand for refrigerator, the demand for costly AC machine, all these are the example of luxurious goods. So if the price of the luxurious good increases by 10%, then the quantity demand for the luxurious good will decrease by more than 10%. Relatively elastic demand. Relatively inelastic demand, the second magnitude. If the percentage change in quantity demand, if the percentage change in quantity demand is less than the percentage change in price of the commodity, that is, price is increasing more, quantity cannot adjust with that of the price, quantity is increasing, quantity is decreasing. With the increase in price, all right, the quantity of the good demanded will reduce, but it is reducing by less than what the price is increasing. For example, if the price of the rice increases by 20%, will you reduce the consumption of rice by 20%? The answer is no, because that is the necessities of life. If the price of sugar increases by 10%, will you reduce the consumption of sugar by 10%? No. You may reduce the consumption of sugar, but it may be 2%, it may be 3%. All of us know that the price of edible oils are increasing, going on increasing, okay, day after day. But have we been able to reduce the consumption of edible oil by 10% or by 20%? The answer to this question is no. Because the edible oil is necessity. So in case of necessities of life, the price elasticity of demand will be less than 1. Because numerator, what is there in the numerator? Percentage change in demand. What is there in the denominator? Percentage change in price. In the numerator, percentage change in quantity demand. In the denominator, percentage change in price. So the numerator is changing less as compared to the change in the denominator. So definitely the value will be less than 1. In this case, the demand curve will be steep, as much steep as possible, not a vertical straight line parallel to the price axis. No, it is not that. But it will be as much steep as possible, taking price on the y-axis and the quantity demand on the x-axis or on the horizontal axis. Example already I have given it to you. What is the example? Necessity goods. Coming to the third magnitude, okay, the third degree. We also call it as the degrees of elasticity. So the third degree of elasticity of demand is unitary elastic demand. As the name suggests, unit, what do you mean by unit? Unit means one. So unitary elastic demand, it implies that the value of price elasticity of demand is 1. Value of price elasticity of demand is 1, that is the price, that is called the unitary price elastic demand. Now when this will take place? When the price elasticity of demand will be 1. Simple mathematics. If the percentage change in quantity demand is equal to the percentage change in price of the commodity, if the percentage change in quantity demand is equal to percentage change in price of the commodity, it will be termed as unitary price elastic demand. Boys and girls, here you have to remember while drawing the curve. This curve, this unitary elastic demand curve, has a special name. The name of that curve is rectangular hyperbola. What is the name of the curve? The rectangular hyperbola. Why the curve? Why the demand curve for a unitary price elastic demand is called rectangular hyperbola? Because any rectangle which you draw, okay, inside the demand curve, any rectangle you draw, inside the demand curve, we'll have the equal area. We'll have the equal area. Please keep it in mind. Now, coming to the fourth degree of elasticity, that is completely inelastic demand. Completely inelastic demand. In this case, in case of completely inelastic demand, if there is a change in price, there will not be any change in quantity demand. Whatever, if the price increases, if the price decreases, your demand for the commodity remains the same. So there is no change in quantity demand. In this case, the demand curve will be a straight line. The demand curve will be a straight line parallel to the price axis. And as there is no change in the quantity demand, here the value of price elasticity of demand, that is EP, will be equal to 0. The numerator is 0. There is percentage change in quantity demand is 0. So whatever be the change in the denominator, the value of price elasticity will always be equal to 0. Example, salt, matchbox, or maybe the shoe polish. How much we are spending on this? We are spending very negligible amount on these commodities. So if the price increases also, we will not reduce the consumption of matchbox, we will not reduce the consumption of the shoe polish, or maybe we will not reduce the consumption of the pin or the salt. Our consumption remains the same if the price increases or if the price decreases. So these are the examples of the completely inelastic demand. So boys and girls, we have done, or I have explained it to you, 4 degrees of elasticity. What are those? Relatively elastic demand, the value of price elasticity of demand will be greater than 1. Relatively inelastic demand, where the value of price elasticity of demand is less than 1. I have explained it to you, the unitary elastic demand, where the value of price elasticity of demand is equal to 1. That is, percentage change in quantity demand is equal to percentage change in price. I have also explained it to you, the completely inelastic demand, where there is no change in quantity demand due to change in price. If the price increases or if the price decreases, the quantity demand, there will not be change in quantity demand. So the numerator is 0. So the value of price elasticity, EP, will also be equal to 0. Now coming to the last degree of price elasticity of demand, that is completely elastic demand, completely price elastic demand. This completely elastic demand is a natural factor of the perfectly competitive market. See, we'll learn about this perfectly competitive market after 2-3 chapters. But in a perfectly competitive market, you have to know there are infinite numbers of sellers, all right, infinite numbers of buyers and sellers. And each sellers, they are selling the homogeneous goods. Homogeneous goods, it implies that the goods are similar in each and every aspect. Suppose you go to the local market, okay? There are 5-7 local fruit market. There are 5-7 fruit sellers are there. You purchase two apples from each. Come home, you just mix it. You will not be able to find out that which apple you bought from which shop, because they are homogeneous. You cannot distinguish it from the others. Now, in case of a perfectly competitive market, boys and girls, you have to remember that if the price increases by a small percentage, by very very small percentage, maybe 0.01 percentage, what will happen? The demand for the commodity will fall to zero. If all the apple sellers in the area which you went, they are charging rupees 20 per apple, and one seller he wants to sell it at rupees 21, will any consumer go to him? The answer is no. Why he will go to him? Because he is getting the same apple from each and every shop at rupees 20. Why to give rupees 1 more? So in case of perfectly elastic demand, if the price increases by a small percentage, then the quantity demand will fall to zero. Whereas if any sellers was to sell the good at a price lesser than the market determined price, he will earn loss. He will earn loss. So he will have to sell the commodity. A firm in a perfectly competitive market will have to sell the commodity at a price determined by the market. So why I have given you all this perspective? Now I am coming to what do you mean by perfectly elastic demand curve. Perfectly elastic demand curve is shows there will be infinite change in quantity demand. There will be infinite change in quantity demand if the price of the good changes by a small amount. There will be infinite change in quantity demand if there is a small change in price of the good. That I have already explained it to you. That if the price increases by a small amount, quantity demand will fall to zero. If the price decreases by a small amount, then in that case what will happen? The producer will earn loss. So example is a farm in a perfectly competitive market. Now what will be the shape? What will be the shape of the demand curve? The shape of the demand curve in a perfectly competitive market, that is the shape of the demand curve for a perfectly elastic demand curve, is it will be a straight line. It will be a straight line parallel to the quantity axis when we are taking price on the y-axis and the quantity demand on the x-axis. So this is the shape. The shape is what is the shape of a perfectly elastic demand curve? It is a straight line parallel to the quantity axis when we are measuring price on the vertical axis and the quantity demand on the x-axis. So my dear students, so now I have finished this topic also, that is that the different degrees of price elasticity of demand. 5 degrees. Very, very, very important question either for your ICSE or for your ISC. I said it to you before also. For ICSE, they ask you, what are the 4 degrees of elasticity of demand? Or explain any 4 degrees of elasticity of demand. You can explain any. You can explain any, but you have to remember, my boys and girls, you have to give the definition, you have to give the diagram, and also you have to give the example. That is what the board asks from you. If you do not give the diagram, okay, the graph, your marks will be deducted, because it is instructed to the evaluators that wherever graph is there, if it has been asked or if it has not been asked, you have to give the graph. You have to give the example in order to make your statement much more clear. So this is must for your ICSE, as I said it to you. They can also give you the short answer type question. For example, they will give it to you, show the demand curve for a perfectly inelastic demand, and number 2 may be relatively elastic demand. 2 marks question. So here you just have to draw. You just have to draw with the proper labeling. All right. Perfectly elastic straight line, perfectly inelastic, vertical straight line, relatively elastic, make it as much flat as possible. So you just have to draw, and if possible, if your time permits, I will suggest you to give an example. This much. So both for ICSE and even for ISC also, ISC there is no 7 marks question. It is generally of 3 and 6 marks question. So you can get the question of 3 marks to explain any 2 degrees of elasticity of demand. So this is what you have to concentrate in this part. Must, it's must. You can check. Now coming to the next topic, which I will at least give the introduction to you, and I will teach you um, teach you the full things in my next video, because time will not permit me so much now. Anyway, we are talking about the income elasticity. We have talked about the cross elasticity. We have talked about the price elasticity of demand. Now, my boys and girls, what are the determinants? What are the determinants of price elasticity of demand? Just now I just taught you the different types of elasticity, different degrees of elasticities, different magnitudes of elasticity. So a commodity will be relatively elastic or it will be relatively inelastic. It depends on what? What are the determinants? That we will try to find out. There are various factors. There are various factors on which the price elasticity of demand depends. For example, it depends on the nature of the commodity. It depends on the existence of the substitute. It depends on the income of the consumer. It depends on the time, means the time frame, on the depend on the how much time it is, a short period time or the long period time. It also depends on the other factors. For example, it depends on the variety of uses. It also depends on the importance, means how much income we are spending on that commodity. So these are the various factors which determine the elasticity of a commodity, that if the commodity will have relatively elastic demand or it will have relatively inelastic demand. So that we will discuss in our next lesson. In our next lesson also we will discuss about what are the importance of price elasticity of demand. Why we will learn price elasticity? What is the use of price elasticity? Price elasticity of demand is used by the businessman or by the producer to set the price. Price elasticity of demand is helpful for the employer to employ the people. There are various aspects of the use and the importance of price elasticity of demand that we will learn in our next lesson. Boys and girls, I hope you have understood what I taught, and if you are liking my video, all right, I will suggest you to subscribe, and please watch. Please don't subscribe and keep it like that. No, that is not my objective. That you will just subscribe and you will not watch. No, my dear boys and girls, my friends, whoever has subscribed, please watch. Please watch. It will be helpful. Maybe if you are not a student, okay, if you are not a student, but how the demand, how you are, why you are purchasing the good, when you are purchasing the good, okay, how it is affecting the businessman or how it is affecting the government. All these things, it is a basic things. When India is moving towards a recession, or someone they are saying, some people they are saying the slowdown. Every citizen of our country, we must know the basic of economics. We must know the basic of economics. We have to carry our country ahead. So please, if you have subscribed, please watch the video also, and please share it with the others. And if you have anyone known, I will ask you to share with them and ask them to subscribe my channel, Thinkonomics, Study with Navarun. Think economics, apply economics. That is how we will move forward. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your support. Namaskar and Jai Hind from Navarun Mandal.